I used the first generation S5 for the interviews, and it just kind of got me thinking from a video perspective, from a spec perspective. I think I'm going to make some changes with my interview setup. Check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2, check. All right, so I just got done with a video shoot, and I used the first generation S5s for the interviews. And it just kind of got me thinking, but after using the S5 II, like right now, and I mean, look at this. I have like a Cinebloom filter on here, and it still catches me with autofocus. From a video perspective, from a spec perspective, I think I'm going to make some changes with my interview setup. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the S5s, the original S5s are absolutely incredible. I mean, these things, I've been using them for a year regularly, especially for interviews. They're my primary interview camera, but there's just a few more options about the S5 II. And I think with the X version, I haven't had my hands on the X version yet, but I think that would even be the step that I would take, even more so than the regular S5 II. But I think the S5 II X might be my replacement for the original S5s. So for this last shoot I had a 35mm on one S5 and a 50mm on this other. We were in like a really tight space, so I went a little bit wider. But there's a couple things about the S5 II that I really like being able to power it with USB-C. Now the shoot went a little bit longer than I was hoping. You know, I thought it was going to be kind of more of like a 4-hour shoot, but once we got into it, it turned into more of an 8-hour shoot. So I was kind of scrambling, you know, making sure I had batteries charged and all that. But the way it was going, I was like absolutely just flying and cruising through my batteries. So being able to plug in the S5 II, like either with a power cord USB-C or, you know, like the small rig V-mount battery or any other type of V-mount battery, but just having that V-mount battery option to be able to power the S5 II during some of those longer interviews, that's just going to be, that would be a game changer, honestly. And I understand that I would be able to, you know, use D-tap power with a V-mount battery on the S5s, but I really like that USB option, and having it on the S5 II, I mean, it just comes in really handy. But then if I decide not to use, you know, USB-C power, I can still use the D-tap power, but then like on the S5 IIX, I would still have, you know, the USB-C recording. And so for some of these longer interviews, having the USB-C recording, that would be huge. Let me turn this here. Especially if you're shooting interviews for about 8 hours like I was on this other shoot, you know, that like, that's a long time. So having that extra recording space and SSD, that USB-C SSD recording, I mean, it's a very affordable way to get storage and record right onto the storage. I know the S5 IIX is gonna have that USB-C recording. So, you know, that might be one of the reasons I would go with the X version over the regular S5 II version for this particular type of, you know, interview shooting. So I really like all the options through USB-C with the power, but also with the recording. I think those give a lot of different options through USB-C that I just don't necessarily have with the regular version S5. But then if I also wanted to, I'd have ProRes recording on that X version of the S5 II as well. So I don't know, I was just kind of thinking about all these things as I was shooting this super long interview. Then one of the other things I was thinking is that the S5 II actually is like a full 10-bit camera. The S5s, the original S5s, they're more of like an 8-bit, well, they have 10-bit options, but they're a little bit more of an 8-bit centric camera. And so one of the things I've really enjoyed with the S5 II is shooting vlog. And the only times I've shot vlog with the original S5s is when I actually record out HDMI. Otherwise, I've been shooting in the natural profile, kind of like I did with the GH5. So I really like that option with the S5 II of being able to have that 10-bit recording. Even that 420 10-bit is absolutely incredible when it comes to vlog and coloring it, and being able to have that internal recording. I mean, that is going to be, that's going to be a game changer, and I probably will shoot vlog pretty much all the time then. No more natural color profile, which actually kind of makes me a little sad. Okay, I'll probably still shoot natural some of the time, but the vlog from the S5 II has just been grading so nicely. And like this shot, you know, I have the Cinebloom on there. Well, I already said that, but I have the Cinebloom on there. So things are a little, you know, not as contrasty, but I'm really interested in seeing how this type of shot grades. I definitely need to get these top lights off. That in itself would help a lot. But the vlog, from what I've been getting with the S5 II, has been so nice and so easy to work with, that being able to shoot 420 10-bit has been, first of all, like really easy on the computer, and then second of all, you get great results. And for a lot of the type of work I'm doing, it's not necessarily going on TV. Some of it is, but not all of it is. A lot of it's actually going on websites and on social media. So as I was kind of processing all of this, that's really honestly what it came down to as I was shooting this particular interview. The S5, yes, it's been great. I've loved it, but I think that it is maybe now time to move on to the S5 II for interviews. So let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Have you been shooting with the S5? Have you been shooting with the GH5, GH6, GH4? I don't know, this is just some stuff that I've kind of been processing, and I had a lot of time to kind of think through it, process it, and kind of evaluate my setup. And ultimately, I mean, I could get so much more use out of those S5s. So it's definitely not like a need to change or anything. But I think from an efficiency standpoint and from, I don't know, just that perspective of shooting interviews, I think that's the move I'm gonna make, probably to the S5 II. And again, I've been loving the GH6 for B-roll with that 4K 120 and a bunch of other options similar to what the S5 IIX would have in SSD recording and being able to power it through USB-C. But for interviews, I've really been liking the full frame after using the full frame now on the S5s for about a year. So I don't know, in the comments, help me process this. That's just some stuff off the top of my head about some of these cameras, but let me know what you think down in the comments. But I actually did use the S5 II on a full shoot, and I've never used a LUMIX camera like this before on a client shoot. But make sure you check out this video right here to see how I use the S5 II different than I've used any other LUMIX camera on a client shoot.